Well, it's the hottest day of the summer so far, and like an idiot, I'm wearing all black. I don't know what I'm thinking, but let's do this. Hey guys, Andrew Davidson here, and welcome back to another As Per My Ability video. If you like what we do here at As Per My Ability, if you like our videos, if you like our content, if you like board games in general, please comment, like, subscribe, do all the fun YouTube stuff. Also, make sure you hit the bell to get notifications when we post new videos. We appreciate everything you guys do for us to help our channel grow. Today's video is, as you've seen, my top 5 favorite Prospero Hall games. Now, I have really been attached to Prospero Hall, and I don't know why. Well, I'll try to explain why. First of all, caveat, I've never met anyone from the Prospero Hall design team. I don't even know what they look like. Could be 2 guys, could be 3 guys, could be like 2 men and a woman. I don't know anything about the design team. They are not paying me anything to talk about all their games and do a bunch of videos on their games. So having put all that aside, I've really had this gut feeling, this intuition, maybe spiritual or the universe, that Prospero Hall is a really important design team for our time, because they typically work with IPs, which is intellectual property, which means that their games are tied into a movie or a book or a TV show, and then they get the licensing for it and they create a board game. And so that's a good draw for people that don't play games. Also, for people that don't play games, their games, more or less, are pretty straightforward. They're easy to play, they're easy to teach, they're incredibly fun, as you're going to see here if you stick with me in my video. They're incredibly fun. And so I feel like Prospero Hall is creating the next generation's Ticket to Ride. You know, Ticket to Ride was a huge game that blew up, has a million expansions, and it blew up because it had just the right smidge of strategy, but overall it was just an easy game and a fun game to play. Pretty laid back game with just a little sprinkling, like bam, sprinkling on some strategy, just enough to make it, like, make you think. Before we get to my top 5 list, most people do honorable mentions. I'm not doing honorable mentions. Instead, I'm going to be doing Prospero Hall games I own that I have not played. Hence, why they're not on my top 5. They may end up on my top 5, but due to life and work and personal things, I can't churn out playing all these games as fast as, you know, us gamers would probably want to. And I know for a fact, before you judge me, I know for a fact that there's probably a million gamers out there that's got a whole stack of games. They're like, yeah, I haven't played any of these at all. I bought this one like last Christmas. Haven't touched it. So I'm not going to do honorable mentions. I'm just going to talk about Prospero Hall games that I haven't really played. So stick with me through this, and then we'll get to the top 5. Trust me, you're going to love these games. I highly recommend, especially the ones on my top 5, because, ding, I've played them. So number 1 on we'll call it just the honorable mention games that I have not played, or just games that I have not played, is called Last Defense. Now, I know what you're saying. You're like, dude, Davidson, you put out a video on Last Defense, and that's true. You can go check it out. I do have a video about Last Defense. I have not played this game with other people. It is a purely cooperative game that requires a app integration. So there's an app that kind of runs the bad guys in the game. You're basically trying to save a city from all of these like sci-fi stuff, like giant bugs and aliens and the blob monsters and stuff. I have solo co-opted this game. I threw it on the pile because it's like, well, it's not a game that I've really played with other people, so I don't know if I have a good gauge of how the game plays. But I played it in really quick. It plays in 20 minutes, as it says on here. It's 20 minutes right under Last Defense. The app, it has a timer, so the game does not take any longer than 20 minutes. So I set it up, I played for 20 minutes by myself, I solo co-opted, and then I put it away, and I haven't touched it since I did the video, so that's why it's on here. The next game, Prospero Hall game, that I have not played is Wonder Woman. So it's a Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons. This is another cooperative game, no app in this one, where you're taking on the roles of the Amazonian women from the Wonder Woman DC universe, and you're trying to protect the home island. Forgive me, I don't know all of I'm not a aficionado of Wonder Woman, although I am a DC fan. I don't know why I had to just yell that. I feel like you have to yell if you're a DC fan, because whatever. So, have not played Wonder Woman. I do know it's cooperative. I do know that you're playing against the board or against the game. Moving on, the next one in the series of games I have not played, and this is a game I actually bought last Christmas, so I've had this game for a good long time, but that is Home Alone. The Home Alone game is a card game. As far as I know, it's a 2-player only game. One person is going to be playing Kevin McAllister. If you've ever seen the original Home Alone movie from, what was it, early 90s, I want to say? You're playing Kevin McAllister trying to defend the home, so that's one player. And then on the other side, the other player is operating as the Wet Bandits, which are the antagonist duo within the movie, and they're trying to break into the house, and that's about as far as I know. They're trying to steal things. It looks like a really, really light version of Netrunner, where in Netrunner you're setting up what would you call it, firewalls to protect yourself from people hacking you, these Netrunners hacking you. This looks like a really dumbed down version of that, where you're setting up these traps to trap the burglars from getting inside the house. Don't know much about it. I've had this mother trucker since Christmas. I haven't played it. I haven't opened it up yet. What does it even say? It says 2 to 4 players. It's 2 to 4 players, 15 to 20 minutes, so pretty light card game. And it says for ages 8 and up, so it's for 8-year-olds. 8-year-olds, dude. 8-year-olds. Next up on the list of Prospero Hall games that I have not played is Jungle Cruise. So Jungle Cruise adventure game is somewhat of from what I know, is a semi-co-op game. It's based on a Disney ride, and you're basically going down this ride on a amusement park, and you're trying to get to the end first. It's a race game, but it's got a little bit more to it. Honestly, in full transparency, that's really all I know. So that's Jungle Cruise, adventure game. Have not played it. Not yet. The last one on the list of Prospero Hall games that I have not played is Fast and Furious, Highway Heist. Don't know anything about this game. Actually, ironically enough, I just got this within the last 24 hours. As far as I can tell, it's cooperative, and that's about here. This one you can actually see kind of a picture. And so there's cool little minis, there's some cars, and it's a cooperative game where you're trying to do a highway heist, I guess, together, cooperatively. What it says on the game is ages 12 and up, 2 to 4 players, and takes 60 minutes to play. That is gosh darn all I know about the game since I just got it. Waiting for the police to get out of my video. Another one that I don't have, it's actually literally coming out tomorrow from the time I'm recording this video, is Goonies Never Say Die, I believe it is. And that is another one that I am incredibly excited about. As a kid who had a VHS tape of the Goonies and watched it over and over and over, I love the Goonies, and it's a cooperative game, but not only is it cooperative, from what I know, is that it has scenarios to it. So you'll be playing scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3, and the game board will change, and some things about the game will change based on what scenario you are playing. So a little bit of a campaign mode feel to some of their games. Super excited for this one. Don't have it yet. Probably will be getting it tomorrow or in the super recent future or near future. That one is one I have not played, but it sounds like a good time. That's all I have. Another one that I'm going to throw out there because I had, but I don't have anymore, is Hocus Pocus. Hocus Pocus is a card game. I never got a chance to play it. I just kind of passed it off. I actually, and I know you guys are going to throw like internet like waste at me, I actually have never seen Hocus Pocus. Apparently it's just a cult classic, like the Goonies, I suppose. It maybe was a generational thing, never really hit my radar. Not super excited about the IP for Hocus Pocus, and never really had the desire to really be like, I gotta get this game to the table. I just have to. And so it ended up just getting kind of passed off. All of those games will not be on my top 5. So now that we've gotten those away, let's get to my top 5 Prospero Hall games. And these are in order. Number 5. Number 5 is a Disney tie-in game, and that is called Villainous. Now, in Villainous, as it looks like, in Villainous, you are taking on a villain from the Disney world. So you got Ursula, you've got Jafar, you've got Cruella de Vil. There are a bunch of expansions that I have, so I have like all the characters that you can play. So essentially you're taking on the villain in Disney movies trying to accomplish whatever their nefarious goal is that is in their game. It's incredibly asymmetrical, so it's a hard game to explain because every single villain has their own deck of cards, their own win condition. And so my win condition is going to be totally separate from like Tom or like Mr. Bill's. Like mine could be like to just draw cards. Once I get 25 cards in my hand, I win the game. Whereas like Mr. Bill's would be to collect X amount of money tokens or power tokens is actually what they're called. It's an incredibly hard game for me to delineate on camera right now, but it's an asymmetrical game, not cooperative. It's a competitive game. I think it's fun, and it's only fun because I have all the expansions. So if you like Villainous, if it sounds good, you should probably pick up expansions too, because the draw to this game is being able to pick someone new and be like, oh, I wonder how this person works. Like I said, every villain has their own specific deck of cards, their own board. So that's really a lot of the fun of the game for me. The gameplay itself, not too difficult, just like Prospero Hall. It's incredibly easy to play, pretty quick to play. I'd say 60 minutes, about an hour to play, so like pretty quick to play. And the real fun of it is going, who am I going to be? So number 5 is Prospero Hall's Disney's Villainous. Number 4 on my list is another intellectual property game, and it comes from a movie out of the 80s that I absolutely love. It involves time travel, and I'm sure you guys know Back to the Future. Now, there are let's pause for a minute. There are quite a few Back to the Future games I've seen out there. This is the one that you want. The others are just rubbish. But the Prospero Hall one, Back to the Future, Back in Time, is what it's called by Funko Games and Prospero Hall Design Team. That's the one you want to pick up. It's purely cooperative. you're working to try to like do multiple things. You're trying to get the DeLorean hooked up. You're trying to get power to be able to, before the time runs out. There's a lot of stuff to be done in the game, and the game is always fighting back, and you're on a timer, so to speak. At least you have X amount of rounds. I have not won this game. It's not an easy game. That doesn't mean it's not an easy game to play, and it doesn't mean it's not an easy game to learn or teach. It's a challenge. It's essentially a puzzle of like, okay, on my turn, I do this, so it's got that kind of pandemic feel of everyone talking about what they're going to do on their turn and how to mini-max their turns and their resources. It's got some dice rolling in it, so that's always a kind of a bummer when you try to set everything up and being like, do we successfully? Crap, I didn't roll what we needed. So that's kind of a bummer. But by and large, Back to the Future, Back in Time, this is where it's at. I really enjoy this game. Number 3 on this list, ironically, is the very first Prospero Hall game I ever played. This is before I even knew what Prospero Hall was, and until a buddy of mine, Brad, commented about Prospero Hall, and I like Prospero Hall. And then I started checking the boxes and checking the design team, because it's on the back of the boxes, and I really started to get into understanding what Prospero Hall was, what their games were. I went onto their website, looked for their games. Anyways, this revolves around Universal Picture monsters. You guys probably know Horrified. If you know Prospero Hall at all, this is their bread and butter game. This is an awesome game. Horrified is a cooperative game where you're taking on the roles of citizens trying to protect some fictitious town from the invasion of all of these Universal Picture monsters. The Invisible Man, the Werewolf, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, Dracula, the Mummy, all of those. You don't play with all of them, so that's kind of a cool part of the game, is you get to pick and kind of customize. Let's do Dracula and the Mummy. Horrified is this generation's Pandemic. It feels like Pandemic. It works off of an action point allowance system, just like Pandemic. It has the whole, I take a turn, then I flip a card, and like bad stuff happens, the game does crap, and then Mr. Bill takes a turn, and then you flip a card and the game does, just like Pandemic. So it's got a lot of the same mechanisms in it and how the gameplay works, and it's a lot of fun. The only downside to Horrified is they really could have gone more with it. They could have done some more with it, with some expansions, adding more characters or adding in more bad guys. Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's monster, is in this game. I don't know. I just feel like I've played a lot of Horrified. It's a great game. It's probably not going to hit my table that much in the foreseeable future, maybe every once in a while. But dang, if they put out an expansion, I definitely would be getting Horrified back to the table. So, wink. Let's get to number 2. Number 2 is based on the 1979 cult classic, the game that got everyone freaked out and got everyone out of the water, and that is Jaws. Now, Jaws is a little different than what we've been talking about, because Back to the Future, fully cooperative game. Horrified, fully cooperative game. Now, Jaws is what I consider a semi-cooperative game, or one versus all. So in Jaws, you're going to have one person take on the role of the shark. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, the name of the shark is Bruce. So one of you is going to be playing Bruce, basically Jaws, the shark. Everyone else is going to be working together to try to kill you, or find where you are, because you're underwater, and kill you. The game takes place over 2 acts, and they play incredibly different. The first act, I would say, is akin to Scotland Yard or Fury of Dracula. You're trying to figure out, which way did the shark go? Did he go this way? Did he go that way? You can drop sensors in the water that would tell you whether if he moved, he or she. I'm not trying to assume that the shark's pronouns. There are ways for you to kind of do some deduction for the players to figure out where the shark is at to try to shoot it with some barrels, just like in the movie where they tag some barrels to it, so then the barrels float and then you can see where the shark is. The second act is completely different game. You flip the board over, you use different cards, and the second act is pretty rad because then it's a close-up view of, I think it's the orca, the boat. It's a close-up of the boat, and it's kind of a combat game. It's kind of a guess where the shark's going to pop up and try to eat you or the boat. And if you can guess where they're at, you can aim, because everyone kind of aims their guns or positions themselves, and then the shark player reveals, ha, I'm jumping at this location. And it turns into a pretty fun combat game. I've played Jaws probably 5 or 6 times, and only once did it not really go over. And that's just based on kind of the people I were playing with, and where I was playing, and the time frame that we had to play and stuff. We finished the first act, if you will, and they were just not interested in. They were just like, oh, we're not really interested to move on to the second act. That was a bummer. That's an isolated incident, because every other time I've played Jaws, it's been just like gangbusters. It's been a good game. It's always close. If you get some really savvy players, it's always a close game. It's usually not a blowout. I've never really seen Jaws, in my opinion, be a blowout. So Jaws is one that's really cool. It's 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up. There's some cool strategy in it. It's number 2 for a reason. I love Jaws the movie. I love actually the second Jaws and the third Jaws. After that, we're not going to mention anything, which most people don't. Most people think they're rubbish. I think they're all pretty good in their own way, but the original Jaws, let's go. It's so good. So Jaws is number 2. It's a really good game to play. My number 1 favorite game of Prospero Hall is a complete divergence from everything that we've been talking about tonight. You've seen a lot of reoccurring themes. One of them is intellectual property. Okay. Second reoccurring theme is they're usually cooperative or semi-cooperative to some nature. Okay. My number 1 is neither of those. So it is not really based on any IP, and it is not cooperative. In fact, it is fully competitive, and it is the most strategic game on the list, which is probably why I like it, because it's a little bit like this Prospero Hall, but it feels fresh, it feels new, it feels different. My number 1 Prospero Hall game at the time of filming this is a game called Pan Am. And Pan Am is a competitive game where you are taking on the role of your own, or I suppose just your own airline. And Pan Am is a kind of a dummy player that is trying to buy up the sky, so to speak. So it's got a little bit of a historical accuracy to it. It takes place in the 1950s and moves into the 1960s, and you're trying to vie for the space, for routes. You know, I want to be able to fly my planes from here to here, and then Pan Am might swoop that and buy that from you, and that's really a good way to win the game, is because if you create some really successful routes, Pan Am's going to come to you and make you an offer that you can't refuse. And so you take a bunch of money and you score out a bunch of money. You can buy stocks as well. So there's quite a few things going on. There's also a bidding phase. It's really fun, but it's the most strategic thing that I've probably talked about of games that I've played for Prospero Hall. Here's the board. So it's kind of like a Ticket to Ride as far as you're trying to like connect spots, but it's not. It's got a lot of strategy. It's got a lot of trying to outbid other people, buy low, sell high kind of aspect with the auctions, and whoever has the most, I think it's the most money at the end, is the most prosperous airline, I suppose. Prosperous from Prospero Hall. Anyways, So those are my top 5 Prospero Hall games that I've played. Did I get it wrong? Are some of the games that I haven't played, are they on your top 5? Are my top 5s not what your top 5s would be? Comment below, let me know. But as for right now, as of recording this, those are my top 5. So that's everything for me. This is where I'm going to leave us. My name is Andrew Davidson. You've been watching As Per My Ability, and I will see each and every one of you at the next video. Thank you for watching. Horrified is a cooperative game. Ugh.